Hello everyone. So I hope you've had a great build so far. So just giving you a reminder of what this session is all about. So this is COM155. I hope everyone's in the right section. And today we're going to learn about building interactive bots for Microsoft Teams. Yeah. So if you can head over to this link, aka.ms/learn/teamspot, it'll take you to the right learning module for what we're going to do today. Also, additionally, we've got a team of moderators, so if you look in the chat, you should also find the relevant links for today's presentation. Let me just go over the agenda real quick. We'll start with, just welcome and introduction. So I'll just give an overview of who I am, and I've got a wonderful team of moderators with me over here. And then some just general housekeeping stuff. Then the majority of today's session is going to be we're going to dive deep into this learn module and actually have you code and develop a bot. So if you haven't actually done this before, we will start this session, and hopefully by the end of this session, you will have your own very first bot working within Microsoft Teams. For the third part, I will take questions, and I would like to give at least 10 to 15 minutes for this. So let's see how far we get. And what we'll do is we'll collect questions and any that we have that are generally applicable to everyone, we'll take it towards the end. So a little bit about myself. I'm Ujasvi. I'm a product manager on the Microsoft Teams developer platform, and I own bots, connectors, messaging extensions on the team. With me, I've got Arvind, Leon, Manasi, Vu, June, Sid, Susanna, and Christina, who are from the Teams platform engineering and product marketing teams. So really on this call today, we've got 8 people helping you out for any questions that you might have. So please do make use of chat. We'll make sure that that your question is answered, or that we point you to the right resource so that you can look at it later. General housekeeping. So the first thing is this session will be recorded. Please try to follow along as much as possible for you. If at some point you feel like, okay, I'm not able to continue for whatever reason or it's getting too long, don't worry. We'll post all of these sessions on YouTube in about a week or so. So then you can come back in a week and actually continue from where you left on. And I promise that by the end of it, you will have your bot either today or then. Questions, please use the chat window and code of conduct. So for all Microsoft digital events, we have a code of conduct. This is the same for any other build event, and this will be pasted in the chat as well. So please adhere to it. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So for the first part of this session, we're really going to look at what type of scenarios make the most sense for building a bot in Teams. And how building a bot in Teams is slightly unique from building a bot elsewhere if you've developed a bot for web chat, say. Secondly, we're also going to look at what are the 3 main components that you need to get your bot up and running. And by the end of the first part, we will actually go ahead and I'll demo this and I'll take you along with me so that you will have a bot up and running on your own demo tenant as well. And lastly, we'll just recap and go over the basics of conversational bots. So you've rounded off this session. Now I'm gonna head over into the learn module. So this is ak.ms/bots/learn. Okay. So over here, we're in the create interactive conversational bots for Microsoft Teams Learn module. I'm gonna head over into introduction. So, conversational bots allow users to interact with their web service through text, interactive adaptive cards, and task modules. These bots can be scoped to handle simple commands. Developers can also use complex artificial intelligence powered and natural language virtual assistants. In this module, you learn how to create and add bots to custom Teams apps. Self-explanatory over there. One thing I'm going to call out is all of these things, terminology such as adaptive cards and task modules, they don't make sense to you. right now. They will by the end of it. Towards the very end, I will sort of provide an overview of like what of these different components are that are used for building bots and teams. And my intent today is really to just give you a scaffolding so that you can do this module by yourself, and you have like all the high level pieces to go ahead and execute on your own and like dig deeper into all of these individual components. Um, if you look into the additional resources, you'll find this section to be pretty helpful. So on this actually links up to the GitHub repository for this training module. You'll also find some slides. I will reference some of these slides today, but you can look at them at your own convenience later. Also, a shout out to Andrew Connell, who's the Microsoft MVP who developed this module. And over here, there's also another screencast that walks you through this module. So if you'd like to make use of that, there's so many resources right now. Okay, getting started. So let's look at an overview of bots with Microsoft Teams. So what I'm going to do for this section is I'm in Unit 2 right now, and I'm going to cover Unit 2 and Unit 3 simultaneously. The way the module is structured is Unit 2 gives you an overview, and then Unit 3 is the exercise. I'll start by giving the overview, and then I'll jump straight into the exercise from this unit. But while you're doing it by yourself later on, I'd recommend that you go through Unit 3 because it contains way more details in it than we would be able to take in today's call. Okay. Overview of bots with Microsoft Teams. So conversational bots, we've already covered this part. So what tasks are best handled by bots? So bots in Microsoft Teams can be part of a one-on-one conversation, a group chat, or a channel in a team. Each scope provides unique opportunities or challenges for your conversational bot. So I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with Microsoft Teams, but I'm just going to give a quick overview of what we mean by these different scopes. So I'm heading over into my demo tenant, and over here you can see that I have a Mark 8 project team. So within this team are multiple members. So we've got a bunch of owners and guests. And what this means is that within each team, there are multiple channels where people can discuss and get work done. So for example, this is the design channel or the digital web assets channel where people are discussing about mockups. So this is one of the scopes that a bot can operate under, this one being called teams and channels. The second scope that we have over here is a chat. So for example, I'm using this bot called Polly, which ships with the Microsoft, you can access it from the Microsoft Store. It's basically a polling solution. One of the things that it does really well is a polling solution. It does other things too. But over here, I can have a one-on-one conversation with a bot, and this might be more typical if you've done bot development before. For example, if you've interacted with a bot on a website, this model is more akin to that. It's just you and the bot. Another example will be a group chat where a bot has been added. So I'm in a group chat between three people, Megan and Nestor over here. If I add a bot to this conversation, then that is going to be a group chat scope. Why this is relevant to this conversation is that the type of scenario that your bot is going to develop, that you will enable via your bot, is going to vary between a group chat and a channel versus a one-on-one bot. So what type of scenarios make most sense to develop in a channel? Notifications. So let's say that you want to do some sort of incident management, or that you're doing project management where you want to track tasks, or there's a Sev1 or a Sev2 going on. You can imagine that there is a team for incident management, and there is a channel for incidents. So every time a new incident comes in, your bot can post a message to that channel, and then people can look at it and talk about it and collaborate on it. Another scenario that works really well is feedback of examples such as polls and surveys. So let's actually look at one and create a poll in this channel. So I'm going to use Polly again, and I'm going to create a poll to be or not to be. don't be. So, you can have, you can really choose to customize your app and provide multiple options over here. You can, in this, for example, I can add multiple choices. It doesn't really make sense for this poll, but I could add additional choices, and audience could also add choices too. You can make it anonymous, non-anonymous, and then when I click preview, it shows me an adaptive card of a preview of the adaptive card and the way it's going to look like once I post it in the channel. And when I send it, yep, it sends a poll to this channel, and I can take a poll, and it's updating the card over here. So this entire flow, everything that you've seen over here, is all powered by conversational bots within Teams. And what we're going to do today is just get you started on this journey so that you can come up with your own conversational bot down the road. Yeah. So polling and survey is another great scenario for collaborating together in a channel, because what you really want to do is you want to bring people together and you want to ensure that how they can get the most out of their time together. So collaborative bots make the most sense in a channel. If I can summarize in the essence of what I've just said in like one statement, it's pretty much going to be this statement: that interactions that can be resolved in a single request response cycle, where the results are useful for multiple members of a conversation, these type of scenarios will make the most sense when you're thinking of developing for a channel. When it comes to bots and group chats, it's pretty much the same thing. So whatever that you're going to do for a channel largely will translate across. So a polling or a survey scenario will work just as perfectly in a group chat as it would in a channel. Bots and one-on-one chats. So this is the traditional method of developing a conversational bot that you're probably most familiar with. And this is where the type of scenario that would make the most sense over here would be a one-on-one bot on a personal assistant. So over here, we've got our very own, very smart personal assistant, Edith. So what we can do is we can say hello, and it's gonna say hello, good evening, sir. How's your build session going? And I will say thank you. It's going well. And it's probably going to say something back. Okay, so it's standing by in case you need anything. So this is not the most sophisticated piece of AI that you will see, but the idea is just to show you that in a conversational, when you're interacting with a bot in a one-on-one chat and you're conversing with it, it makes most sense to have the persona of the bot being more along the lines of an assistant that is serving one user, that is helping them accomplish some tasks or getting things done. The same type of persona would not be very applicable inside, let's say, a team or a channel where what you're trying to do is like cater to the needs of multiple people. Okay. So that was our first section in terms of like the scenarios that are best handled by bots and teams. Now let's dive a little deeper into how do bots work. So when it comes to conversational bots, there are three things that you really need to know about. The first one is a publicly accessible web service that you host. So this is going to be your backend service where you actually implement the code and the logic and the scenarios for your app. This is effectively what describes, this effectively contains what your bot can do. The second thing that you need is you need to register this bot or the service with the Microsoft Bot Framework. And I'll show this and I'll show how to do this. We've got a neat little app called App Studio that simplifies this process for you. So we're going to go do that. And for the third example, you will create a Teams app package that contains your app manifest. So the app manifest, and I'll show you this again as well. There's a lot of new terms over here, but the app manifest is just a simple JSON file, and all it does it describes to Teams what the capabilities of your bot or your application are. And we use it, and it contains stuff like a short description, for example, of your app, the name of your app. You can also include an icon in there so the branding and the character of your app comes through. Okay, and we'll go into all three of these into a little bit of detail just shortly. Okay, so how are bots in Microsoft Teams unique? Okay, so let's just go a little bit into the basics of bot development over here. So over here, if you type in how bots work in Microsoft Bot Framework, you will find this article. Also, as part of the links, we would have shared it with you too. So if you head over into the group chat, the very first link contains a link to this article. So a bot is an app that users interact with in a conversational way. We've already covered this, and everyone's probably aware of this. Every interaction between a user and the bot generates an activity. So over here, the user joining a channel, in this case, the channel could be a web chat or say Microsoft Teams. This interaction between the user and the bot is going to create an activity. Similarly, the user sending a message, hi, is going to create an activity. So from the perspective of the SDK and the bot, all of these interactions are called activities. The bot framework provides a class called the activity handler, which neatly encapsulates all of these APIs, all of these API messages coming through, and converts it into methods that then you can use. The way how this differs in Teams is that we've got our own class, which is it ships as part of the bot framework SDK, which is called the Teams activity handler class, that is derived from the bot framework activity handler class that you can use to enable team specific scenarios, certain scenarios that are unique to Teams and say would not be there if you were interacting with a bot in a web chat. What might these scenarios be? So for example, team member events, when you're the way we add and remove members in a team, if a team member has been added or a team member has been removed, a channel has been created, a channel has been renamed, or a channel has been deleted. All of these type of events are unique to the way that a bot will function within Teams. So that is why these are handled by the Teams activity handler class. Now, these are just some examples. For example, we'll live later on and I'll show you messaging extensions, message actions, and compose extensions. All of those are also part of the Teams activity handler, and they are also specific to the way that Teams functions. So this is just to get you started, but we'll cover that later. I'll walk you through some mocks of how those app types work. Okay, and lastly, we've got message reactions. So what this is I can go ahead and like this bot's message. So every time I do that, the polybot is now getting a message delivered to it that hey, a user liked your message. Okay. Developing bots for Microsoft Teams. So this is the portion of the demo where we're just going to start. This is the portion of today's call where we're just going to start jumping into the demo and start developing stuff. So what are the 3 to 4 things that we need to do over here? So to create a conversational bot, you need the following things. The first one is a web service. So web service is really the heart of your bot is at the web service, and it will define a single HTTPS route on which you will receive all requests. The Microsoft Bot Framework will send different types of messages to your web service based on the type of activity that your bot is seeing within Microsoft Teams. We highly recommend that you use one of our SDKs like the C# SDK or the JavaScript or the TypeScript SDKs to get started with development. These will neatly encapsulate the message types and convert them into methods. So for example, we'll look at what messaging extensions are, but there is something called a messaging extension action command in Teams. Whenever this takes place, the SDK will detect the message type of compose extension / fetch task, and it will call the corresponding method that can be used for handling this particular API call. So yeah, definitely do get started over here. And for the purpose of what we're going to do today, I will also start with the SDKs. Then what we need to do is we need to register the web service with the Microsoft Bot Framework. So in the learning module, today I'm going to use App Studio, which simplifies this process to a certain degree. But in the learning module, people have used Azure. And that's, I think one of the reasons is because if you ultimately want to host your web service, you will want to do it in some sort of a public cloud, for example, Azure. But for today's purposes, we're just going to host it locally using a tool called ngrok, and I'll go into more details about how that helps us. But so for that purposes, we're going to deviate slightly and keep things a little simple. But when you want to go into a production environment, you definitely want to follow all the steps of hosting your web service on Azure, and you can come back and reference this module and go into more details for doing that. Lastly, you'll create your team's app manifest, and this one is just better explained by actually doing it, but this is where we're describing your bot to Microsoft Teams and side loading and testing it inside of Teams. Okay. So so let's just dive in now. The first thing I'm gonna do is I will go into Microsoft bot builder samples. So I'm just going to search this. I will go to the first link over here. One of the moderators will also post this in a chat. So if you'd just like to grab it from there, that'll keep things simple. What we want to do is now we just want to clone this repository. So I'm going to copy it. You can also download the zip if you, by any chance, you don't have Git, just download and it's extracted. It'll work the same way. So I'm going over here and I have created a folder for this. So clone this repository. So this might take a little bit of time for folks. So I'm just going to pause here for a bit and just check if there are any questions that we can take while you guys download the repo. Okay. Okay, so we've got no questions. Okay, so hopefully that was enough time for you guys to download the repo. So what we're going to do is next, I want you to go ahead and head into Visual Studio Code and go into File, Open Folder. Okay, actually, before we do that, let me just give you a quick overview of the actual sample that I want you to work on. So we're looking at sample number 57, which is the Teams conversational bot. What this does is that it has once I add it to a channel, it has the ability to proactively message all members in a team or a channel. When I say mention me, it takes my name and it mentions me back, mentions me back, and it can update previously sent messages. So if you click on the second column over here, this links you to the JavaScript. Sample. This is the C# sample. If you'd like to come back to this later. And over here, it also gives you the steps of what we're going to do. So the first thing is to clone the repository. So I hope you've already done that, either cloned it or downloaded it for yourself. The second thing is we want to go ahead and navigate to that folder inside of Visual Studio Code and install the modules. I'll do that in a bit. Then we'll run it. Then we'll use ngrok and create a tunneling solution between our web service locally and a messaging endpoint for Microsoft Teams. And that one I'll explain in a little more details later. Steps 5, 6, and 7, just for the simplicity and for the time constraints that we have today, I won't go into today. But if you would like to register the bot with Azure and set up your account over there, ultimately, if you want to deploy the bot, you will need to do all of these things. But I'm going to use a slightly different route of setting things up. And then we'll go ahead and interact with this bot and play around with a little bit of these commands just to give you a little bit of taste of what this bot can do for us. So heading back into Visual Studio Code, let's go into File, Open Folder, and I'm in the C drive, delete wing3, bot builder samples, JavaScript Node.js, sample 57 conversational bot, and just select this folder. Okay, So you can also copy this path if might make life a little easier for you. Okay. Over here, I need you to pull up a few files. The first one is Teams conversational bot.js. This is really the heart of the service. All of the main code and the logic for the service is in this file. The other one that we need is index.js. So this is where you remember one of the key things that we want, one of the key steps that you want to have a bot running end to end is that you want to register the service with the bot framework. So this is where we do that via the bot framework adapter, and what it needs is an app ID and a password. And we'll generate this shortly and fill it in. So that's what we need, the index.javascript file. So these are the only two files that you'll need today. Heading back in to the browser. So let's go ahead and do this fifth step and the sixth step. Actually, we'll do both of these together. We're going to register your bot with Microsoft Bot Framework, and in the process of it, create Microsoft Teams app manifest. So I'm heading into my Microsoft 365 demo tenant, and I'm here in App Studio. So I've got it pinned over here, but if you don't have it, just click on the apps icon over here and search for an app called App Studio. It'll be the first one with the name developer tools on it. So what App Studio is it's an app that's developed by the Microsoft Teams development platform that is designed to make your app development journey easier with Microsoft on Microsoft Teams. What it does is it's got the ability to create a manifest editor. You can also validate and publish your app from here. We've also got like a card editor that you can play around with and see how cards look within the team. I'll come to this if I have time at the end. This is a neat feature too. So now let's go into the manifest editor. And what I want you to do is I want you to click on create a new app, since we're going to build a new app from scratch. And the first thing you'll see is the App Studio is asking for a bunch of basic details about your app. So what it needs is it needs an A name. The app ID will generate that. It'll generate it. It needs a package name, a version, some sort of short description and a full description of what your app does. Additionally, it requires developer information, your website terms of use. And this is the part where you can add your own apps icon and bring your branding and have your app's character shine through in Teams. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling in these details. So okay, another thing, before you do that, please make sure that either if you have either that you're logged in via the admin account inside your demo tenant, or any account that has admin privileges. So that's important. If you don't, please ensure that you've got side loading enabled, because we will need to test and distribute this app later on. Okay, so I'm going to call this Contoso demo app. Next, let's generate the app ID. Contoso.bot. Let's give it a version name. Let's give it a full description, a short description, sorry. We can also give it a full description. I'm just gonna go over here and copy this. Let's fill in the developer information. So I use Contoso. Website, make sure it's HTTPS. And just copy this over because you'll need it for the next 2-3 links. Okay, I'm not going to add any branding today, but if you're more than welcome to if you'd like to. Next, we want to head into the capabilities section. So this is really what it is. This is really where you're describing your app and your bot to Teams in terms of what it can do. So within a Microsoft Teams app can be any one of these capabilities, or it can be a combination of capabilities. We've got tabs, bots, connectors, and messaging extensions. A lot of people use tabs and bots together. A lot of people use bots and messaging extension together. I will, towards the end of this call, cover all three, four of these and like what they mean and how you can use them for application development. But right now, we'll just select bot and then click into bots and then click setup. And we're gonna create a new bot. So let's call it Contoso demo bot one. Just using one because I might have used the name before. Scope, personal, team, and group chat. So you know how we so I had this had a little bit of a deep dive into the different scopes that your app can operate in towards the start of this talk today. This is where you're telling teams that my app can operate in all of these different scopes. I understand it, and it's okay to install it there. So go ahead and hit create bot. And now what this does is this is actually pretty neat. So so App Studio is going to go ahead, create a new bot, and register it with the Microsoft Bot Framework for you. So it provides you an app ID. So just copy this and head over into Visual Studio. And inside your index.javascript file, on line 23, you'll find app ID. Just paste it over here. You can also edit it as part of the environment variables. I'm just trying to keep things streamlined. So ensure that you've got quotes around it, and just paste this app ID over here. The next thing we need is an app password. So App Studio can also generate that for you. So just click generate new password. Make sure you store this because you will only be able to access this once, and now it's gone. So I mean, you can always create a new one, but you won't ever be able to get it again. So heading back into Visual Studio and pasting this video. Okay, now what we need is we need a messaging endpoint. So recall how I was talking about that we need some sort of an HTTPS endpoint where teams can send the messages and the API request to your bot service that you can then use to understand what's going on. For this, we're going to use a tool called ngrok. So what ngrok is so you can head on to ngrok.com, and we're also going to post the link in the chat for you if you don't already have this. So effectively, all ngrok allows you to do is it helps you expose a web server running on your local machine to the internet. What we do is we tell it what port our web server is running in, and it gives us a nice HTTPS link that we can then use as a messaging endpoint for our service. And it's going to connect that particular, so from Teams is going to call ngrok, and ngrok is going to tunnel that request back to our local machine, where our service is going to be running locally. So go ahead and download ngrok if you don't have it already. Yeah. So what I'm going to go do is I will head back into my C drive. I've got ngrok already installed. I'm going to run one very simple command, ngrok http, and we need the port number. I believe the port number for this guy is 3978. Yes, 3978. So okay, so here's the HTTPS endpoint for us. Before I do that, let's just before I do that, let's just parallelize ourselves a little bit. Go inside run terminal and select new terminal. And the first thing I want to have you do is just install the modules, the node modules. So just type in npm I, and this is going to grab all the modules for you. You might see a few errors and warnings, but that's fine. Let's not worry about it for today's class. Okay, so while that is happening, let's head back into App Studio at the messaging endpoint, and let's grab this endpoint that Brock gave us. We want the HTTPS one. Copy it over, paste it over here, and append API/messages. So this is an important thing. This is a common pitfall. I've seen many people just pasting in the endpoint itself without adding API/messages towards the end. You need to do that because the service is looking for, if you head back over into Visual Studio, we're looking for incoming requests under API/messages. So you can change this as part of your development if you want to develop it later. But commonly I've seen a lot of people miss this. So that's all done and set up. Okay. The next thing is, so we've defined the app details, we've defined the capabilities. Now we're pretty much done. So head over into the finish section. And we're ready to so we're ready to test and distribute the app. So under finish, go into test and distribute, and click install. So you've got if you have side loading turned on for your demo tenant, you should be just able to click add, and this will add the bot for you. Okay, so we've got the bot over here. Let me just go ahead and say hi. Oh, okay, actually, so we haven't actually started the service, so this is not going to do anything for us. So head back over into Visual Studio. So we just installed the npm modules. Just type in npm start. Okay, now we've got the service up and running on port 3978. And if I've set up everything correctly, now when I say hi, it should actually respond back with a welcome card. Okay, great. There, it works. So, if you followed along to this point, congratulations, you've got your first bot up and running within Microsoft Teams. I hope we've provided you some sort of a scaffolding and some sort of a framework to think around the pieces that you need to bring together for developing a bot in Microsoft Teams. The next thing I will have you do is, so let's head back over into the Learn module. I'm just checking if there's something over here. Okay, no. So let's just head back into the Learn module and just quickly recap what we've learned so far. So we have learned about the different scopes. So let's take an overview of the basics of conversational bots. So we've learned the different scopes that your bot can operate under. It can operate under team scope, it can operate under group chat scope and personal scope. The way a bot behaves slightly differently depending on what kind of conversation it's involved in. Okay, so this is actually something that we haven't covered so far. So let's just quickly look at this. So over here, this might also be a good opportunity to look at the LOB tenant store if you were not able to enable the app by side loading. So I'm going to go back into App Studio. And in the manifest editor, this is the same manifest that we just created right now. Under test and distribute. Now, in case when you click install, it might very well be the case that this option is not available for you. You get a warning message that says side loading is not enabled for your Microsoft 365 developer tenant. So we will post link details in the chat on how to enable side loading for your developer tenant. Unfortunately, that does take some time for the policies to get enabled across your tenant, so it might not be instantaneous for you. In that case, if you're logged in as the admin account for your tenant, there's a little bit of a workaround that we can do over here. So when you go ahead and click download. This is going to download the app package for us. And let's just look at what it is. So all it really is it's the manifest file with the icons. And this manifest file was, nothing but a simple JSON file. I can quickly go over it. And it's got information about the version, the ID of the bot, the developer information. All of this information that we entered as part of creating the manifest, it's just go ahead in JSON format. And you can see the scopes have also been defined. So the bot was defined for personal, team, and group chat scope. Okay. So it's Contoso demo app for me over here. Now what you can do is you can head back into apps, and on the bottom over here, as part of the admin account, you will see a button called upload a custom app, and you will click upload for Contoso or whatever is your tenant name. And then you will take this package and upload it. Okay, now this particular app, okay, now this particular app will, now this is an app. So from here, you can go ahead and add it to a team. And I'm gonna add it to my main, to one of the teams I have over here. And you should be able to get it up and running from here. Now, the way an app works inside a team is going to be slightly different than the way it works inside a channel. Sorry, the way it works in a channel and team is slightly different than the way it works conversationally in a one-on-one bot chat. In a one-on-one bot chat, the bot has access to all the messages that it's being sent to. That is not the case inside a channel or a group chat. Within a channel or a group chat, the user has to mention the bot in order to talk to it. So what we can do is we can do Contoso demo app, and we can say hello, assuming this was the correct package, and it replies back with a welcome card. So it's the same flow. Now, if I say hi over here, it's not actually going to do anything because it doesn't have access to this particular message. But if I do choose one of these methods, for example, update card, which just simply updates this card, your bot will have access to this, to that context, because it owns the message. So that's a nuance of that's one little nuance of in the way that bots behave differently depending on the context that they're in, right? In a chat, in a channel or a group chat, they will only have okay, it looks like they've lost sound. Okay, are we back? Okay, we're all good, great. Okay, it's back. Okay, so a bot behaves slightly differently. So I hope that you got the last part, but let me just recap what I just said. So a bot will behave slightly differently depending on the context that it's operating under. A bot in a channel or a group chat needs to be @mentioned, and it only has access to the messages where it's @mentioned. Within a one-on-one conversation, it doesn't require an @mention. All messages sent by the user will be routed to your bot. Then there are various activities, for example, sending a message, receiving a message, all of the, and we'll look into the team specific activities around messaging members in a channel and scenarios around that later. And that's it. Okay, great. So if you followed along so long, congrats. Units 1 and 2 are complete. The way I was doing it was I was doing 2 and 3 together. 2 is the overview and 3 is the exercise. So what you have right now is the scaffolding to get you started. I definitely do recommend diving deeper into Unit 3 and doing this yourself, so you get a hands-on feel of this, of the exercise. For okay, I'm gonna jump into Unit 4 now. So bots in Microsoft Teams, channels, and group chats. So uh, really, this is really one of the places where bot development for you might be different if you've done traditional bot development in a one-on-one context, for example, in a web chat. And we'll just go through some of the different scenarios and the event types that you could take advantage of, and how you could add some unique value proposition to your bots and teams. So conversation bots in Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams sends notification to your bot for events that happen in scopes where your bot is active. You can capture these events in your code and take action on them, such as the following: trigger a welcome message when your bot is added to a team, trigger a welcome message when a new member is added or removed, trigger a notification when a channel is created, renamed, or deleted, and when a bot message is liked by the user. So let's just quickly go over these. So I have, okay, so I've got 30 minutes left. Okay. So conversation updates. So you can, let's actually look at one of them. So I'm just going to briefly describe what these are. Team member events, team member added or removed. Someone's added from a team or removed from a team. Similarly, channel events, channel created, channel renamed, channel deleted. You could potentially keep track of this and send notifications up in the general channel as to what's happening over there. I'm going to take a slightly more interesting example of message reactions over here. So message reaction is when a user chooses to like your bot's message. So you might want to, try and understand like how this can enable some interesting scenarios. For example, if a user has acknowledged the bot's message, they might want to go ahead and like it. So I've definitely seen some bots be really creative with this. So we'll use this, and what we'll do with this is we'll look at the reactions. We'll look at the fact that if there was a reaction to the message, and if the reaction type was a like, we will return a thank you message back to the user. So go ahead and copy just this code over here, because the constructor and the class code is already part of the sample. Head back into Visual Studio Code and go into Teams conversation bot.js and go to line 43. So this is, we've got the on message method over here, and then we've got the on members added activity. Underneath those two, I want you to go ahead and add the on reactions added method. You'll need to delete some stuff because we're using JavaScript. If you're using TypeScript, you don't have to make any changes over here. Just go ahead and clean this up. This should be it. Now, what we need to do is press Ctrl+C and terminate the service and start it again. Okay, up and running on 3978. Head back into the demo tenant and go over to your bot and just like the message. And what it should do is it should reply back and say thank you for us. So, that works. So I hope you enjoyed your first little copy pasting code for your sample bot in Teams. Now let me just give you a little bit of a demo of what this app, what this bot can do and the type of scenarios that you can enable. One of the scenarios that you can enable is you can ask the bot who I am. So you might not actually want to demo this to a user, but sometimes it's important to know who it is you're talking to, and you might want to mention their name in a channel or a chat. For example, in an incident scenario, if an incident is assigned to a particular engineer, you want to know who that user is. So go ahead and you can use this as the scaffolding for setting up a complex workflow around identifying the person's name and then mentioning them back. You can update the card, and it's going to update the card count. Maybe it didn't quite. Okay, we'll give it a little bit of time. But the scenario for this is, in general, you saw I had set up poly somewhere. Yeah. So I had set up the polypoll, and every time I submit, let's say I change my option, so the bot needs to go ahead and update this card with the latest results. So in order to do that, you need some method to update an existing message. So that's what that does for us. Sorry, okay, I might have lost it, but let's head back over here. So over here, if you update the card, yeah, so it'll update the count of the card, and it'll do it again. Another neat scenario over here is I'm going to use this the edit bot because I don't really know where the other bot is, and I can look at get team profile. So over here, it's telling me that in this team, there are 5 channels, there are 20 members, and the name of the team is Market Project Team. So all of this is additional information that you can use to create some extra intelligence around your bot, and really play with it. You can proactively message members. For example, someone's messaged your team. You can get page members, so you can get a roster of the members in a particular team and send them welcome messages every time someone is added to a team. Okay, heading back. So these were some like teams and channel specific scenarios that you can enable with your bot. I would highly encourage you to go and look at unit 4 and 5 in more detail. Let's cover unit 6, proactive messaging for bots. So proactive messaging for bots is another really powerful scenario that you can use within Microsoft Teams. There are really 2 or 3 types of use cases that make a lot of sense for you to send a proactive message. So, and let me just step back and say what I mean by a proactive message. Typically, if you're developing a bot, every message that you send to the user is in response to some message that is coming from the user themselves. So they'll send you some type of a message that says hi, or maybe they'll say mention me, and you will try and understand who the person is and mention them back. And another neat thing about mentioning is when they mention you, it shows up in their activity feed. So you can use this to get the user's information and communicate important important messages, such as like a self-to incident going on, or if an announcement is there that requires their attention. Yeah, so that's a normal message. A proactive message would be the case in which the bot is proactively messaging you. So a welcome message makes more sense. So over here, when a bot is installed or added to a team, you might, it not always, but sometimes it might make sense for your bot to introduce itself to team members and say that, and explain the capabilities of your bot, especially if they're doing it for the first time. The second type of proactive messaging that makes a lot of sense is if you've got notifications. So let's say that you have an LOB bot that needs to send company-wide announcements. In that scenario, sending a proactive message to all users inside a tenant or all users inside a team would be a great way. So if you've got like travel-related updates, or currently COVID is going on, so if you've got any work from home related updates that you want to send to all users inside a team, inside a tenant, and you want to reach them that way, it's a great proactive messaging, and notification messages and bots are a great way to do that. I do urge you to use this capability sparingly, because typically it's proactive message as an unprompted message, and from the user's perspective could feel a little bit like spam. So be very mindful and careful when you're using proactive messaging, because if you do it too much, your bot, the user might choose to block your bot if it appears spammy to them. Okay, so if you then that's it. When you look at the next exercise, the next module, unit 7, it'll actually have you develop the code for proactive messaging. So my intent over here was just to mainly give you some sort of scaffolding and high-level overview of what this learning module is all about, and help you get started with your journey with Microsoft Teams. And I hope I've done a little bit of that by giving you some sort of a hello world bot to get you up and running. But I'd still encourage you to dive deeper into the exercises. They're very detailed, and you'll learn more about the nuances of interacting in a channel versus a one-on-one context, and the various activity types that are available in Teams. Okay, heading back over into my presentation. So these slides, 1 and 2, are also available from the GitHub repository that I was talking about earlier. So you can also reference them over there. So, okay, great. Yeah. So there is another related session going on. So all of these are sessions related to development for Microsoft Teams. So if you're interested, please go ahead and check them out. The skilling sessions are recorded and they'll be available on YouTube or and channel 9. The live sessions will be held live during build. The skilling session tips for Teams developers, authentication and proactive messaging really goes into the detail of proactive messaging for Teams. And there are nuances around throttling, how to get the right scope, how to get the IDs of users. All of that is going to be covered in significant detail over there. Okay, so yeah, so definitely go ahead and look at that particular session. Okay, so we have got a question over here, and the question is there a designer to visually create the bot, or the only option to implement it is using SDKs? Okay, great. So in build, we actually announced a new way of creating bots, which is called Microsoft Powered Virtual Agents. So if you want to learn more about that, go ahead and check out this session over here, build apps for teams with low code, no code tools. And what you can do over there is in order to come to this step, we've had to create a web service. We've had to set it up in Azure. If you're looking for like if you're looking for a simpler solution to set up a bot, you can use Powered Virtual Agents and visually create bots and teams. So I'd recommend you to check that out. Yeah. Okay. Workflow for app development in Teams. So let's just recap what we did over here. And this is going to be a typical workflow for app development teams. The first step is that you're going to define your app. By what I mean by that is you're going to create the manifest and you're going to specify the capabilities of your app. This is where you'll design and think through the scenarios that you want to enable, whether you want to create a tab, a bot, or a message extension, or a connector, or an incoming webhook. Once you've done and ideated on that, the next thing that you want to do is implement the capabilities. So this is where you actually code your web service. You will leverage tools like the Teams SDK, and you will host your web service. Today we did it locally. You'll probably, if you want to deploy it, you would want to do it in a public cloud such as Azure. The third step is you will test the app. So you will create the app package and then sideload it onto your developer tenant so that you can play around with it. And the final step is that you will distribute the app. So you upload the app package, you will upload it, and if you're developing for an enterprise, you will upload it to the LOB store, the tenant LOB store for that particular enterprise, or you can generally upload it you can also submit it to us for approval and validation to the Teams to the Teams App Store. Okay. So we've got a few minutes over here, and I briefly wanted to give you an overview of the Teams extensibility platform. So Microsoft Teams provides a powerful extensibility platform with many different features that allow you to bring the richness of your app and custom solution to Microsoft Teams. So we've got tabs. Tabs are think of tabs as web apps that can operate in the context of Teams. and are accessible and pinned for users. So a user can go to a channel, access your web app, and the same content that they would have used from a browser would be available from there for there. And they can also pin it locally for their context. Um, if you're in need of like a large of a big canvas to host your user interface, tabs are a good way to go. Bots, conversational entities, we've spoke a lot about it, talked a lot about it today. Then there's a thing called message extensions. So message extensions, these exist above the compose box, and I'll show you what these are in a bit. And they're really good for querying and searching for data that exists in an application outside of Teams and bringing it into Teams. So the idea of all of these apps is to enable a workflow where the user can live within Teams, and they can accomplish these simple tasks without having to switch context. So message extensions are really go a long way in accomplishing that. Message actions, similar. Okay. Message actions are similar, and I'll go into this as well. Task modules, they provide a pop-up dialog for completing tasks and for form entry. So if you remember the poly scenario, when I clicked on create a new poll, it generated within the poly scenario, when I create this, so these are message extensions. So when I create author a new poll, it creates a pop-up, it creates a modal dialog, creates a pop-up dialog for me. This is a task module. So the typical idea behind these is to gather information from the user and create some sort of a card from it. Okay. And the last thing we've got notifications and incoming webhooks. So yeah. Let me just give you a few sample scenarios that you might want to consider when you're developing for Teams. So Teams is definitely a collaboration app. So you want to think of use cases where you're bringing multiple people together and having them, providing them context, providing them information, and having them talk around it. So an ICM scenario where there's an ICM going on and you want to assign engineers and people want to track the status of the ICM inside a channel is a great example of that. Initiating workflows, so you might want to create complex workflows from within Teams. An example for this would be an approvals app. Say that you want to provide some sort of a multi-step approval process where you would like people to approve travel budgets or provide discounts as part of your provide customer discounts. All of that you can enable via a bot within Teams. Notification is when you want to automatically send notifications to multiple members of a team about something that is relevant to them. For example, if there is an announcement that is happening that, hey, internally we've been using it for, there is something build related. So a bot can send a notification for build related announcements. And another interesting thing about notifications is if you head over, I'll share the GitHub repository where you can look this at the end. But we've got app templates for proactive messaging and notifications that you can use and get up and started if you're looking to create some sort of an enterprise notification bot. The code is like pretty much there for you. You can go ahead and like customize it and upload it for your tenant. Share information. So this is basically we allow you to embed a button in your website and then share information into Teams there. Collect and create and collect. So you're using the context of Teams to collect information and curate. So a Q&A board where people are having a discussion within Teams and they decide on a particular answer, then they can then go ahead and say that, okay, this answer based on the discussion that we had in the channel is the correct one for this particular question. Let's store it inside a database. So, that's another great scenario where you're using the context of Teams and the discussions that have happened in Team and archiving that scenario for future use and inform, publishing new information to users. Build for teams and individuals. again, just talking through this a little bit, but I'm sure you've understood by now. The scenario in a team and a channel context is going to be different from a scenario in a personal context. In a team and a channel context, you will want to discuss work items, create complex workflows, share information in a way that multiple people can collaborate on the same entity. In a personal context, you're helping one individual user accomplish some sort of workflow. So it's personal tasks, information lookup, or self-learning. Publishing apps, you can do it to the store, you can do it to a tenant, or you can do it to your own team locally if you're developing it for your team. Message extensions, search. So let's go over message extensions. I know I've been talking about message extensions for a while, so this is really where I just give you a brief sort of an overview of what message extensions are. So over here, I am within Teams. Let me actually switch the view. Okay, so I'm within Teams and I go under the compose box. You will see the applications icon over here. So when I click the Contoso app, you can see there's a search bar. So what the user can do is they can go ahead and search for a particular work item. And the corresponding and the recent work items that people have been collaborating on will be available over there. And then you can click on it and insert it inside a channel. You can also add more information and context about the project, in terms of what you're doing. And then people can, go ahead and chat about it, about what needs to be done next. So that is a search-based message extension. Similarly, there is an action-based message extension. So I'm in the same app. I click on the app icon. I'm going to click on this plus box over here. And what I'm going to do is instead of having searching for an existing work item, I will create a new one. And this pop-up that you see that has come up over here is a task module, which is again used to collect information from the user. So I go ahead and the user creates it and it posts the same card back into the channel. The third type of message extension that we have is link and following. So the idea over here is, the typical workflow is you will be, let's say, on your web browser, looking at some sort of an item on Azure DevOps, for example. And what you would want to do is just copy that link and paste it into Teams. With link and following, what Teams does is every time a URL is pasted over there, if it's been registered with us for link and following, we will automatically call your service. And then what it does is it provides a sort of and it expands it as a card for the user to go ahead and showcase. So instead of like me having to search for a particular work item, what I'm doing it is me as a user, I'm just copying a link, pasting it inside of Teams, and it automatically unfolds it into a rich card type. Today it unfolds into this middle stage where you see this sort of a website unfold, and then the user has to click on this arrow over here to unfold the card. Within this quarter, we're releasing functionality to just unfold the cards by default, so it's a more streamlined experience for you. Okay, great. And then people can collaborate on this. So let me go back and talk a little bit more about the Teams learning modules. So in addition to the create interactive bots, so the create interactive bots is just one part of the extend Microsoft Teams associate learning module series that we have. We've got a lot of great content over here. You can learn more about message extensions. So I just gave you walked you through a few scenarios of what message extensions are. You can come back to this learning module and learn more about message extensions. Then you can also learn to create embedded web experiences with tabs within Teams. We've briefly looked at what tabs were. Then you can look at task modules. So task modules for input collection and validation. Then lastly, if you're familiar with incoming webhooks and connectors, we didn't really go into a lot of detail over there, but if you want to get something simple and up and running quick, then an incoming webhook and a connector might be the right solution for you. So this module might be a good one to get started on. So we covered the first module for creating interactive bots, but there's a lot of other great content over here. So I would definitely encourage you to go and check this out if you're slightly further along in your Teams development journey. Another nice tip that I have for you is that really where an app will shine in Teams is that if you start with a bot and then you add some sort of and you add another app type on it, for example, a message extension and a bot together will make your app stand out more than just a bot in terms of visibility, in terms of engagement with the user, and just the natural user interaction flow. And to make it simple for you, the message extensions app types are available as part of the bot framework SDK. So everything that we've done so far in terms of understanding and enabling a bot, grabbing the samples and enabling it, all of that context is available from the Microsoft Bot Framework SDK. So over here, if you look at samples 51, 52, 53, they actually go into details and they provide you, well, they don't actually go into details, but they provide you some sort of basic scaffolding to get a message extension that is a search based or a message extension that is action based up and running for you. So look at the learn modules. Always get started with the code samples that we have over here. The code samples have been designed in a way that are very targeted to get you up and running. We provide a core set of functionality that you can then extend to bring your app's use case into Teams. So it's basic scaffolding for you. And that's it. Let me take one more question. Yes. Will this session be recorded and posted? Yes, absolutely. So if you have not, if for some reason you were not able to follow along because of the side loading requirements from the demo tenant, we will record and post this session onto YouTube next week. So you can come back and review all of this content and follow along and finish your bot development over there. That's it. Let me see if there are any more questions. Okay. I'm not seeing any. Okay. So let me briefly walk you through next step and resources. I've already talked to you, shown you the GitHub samples for bot framework. Dev.botframework.com is a great resource for looking at the bot framework SDKs. If you want to get started for developing on Teams, then bots and Teams. What are bots and Teams? The great starting point. If you're looking for team specific documentation, aka.ms teams dev docs. It's a simple link. I would just recommend always starting from there to learn more about the context and scenarios for developing for Microsoft Teams. Follow the developer blog to keep update with our latest announcements and the feature releases. The GitHub for Office Dev. This is where I was talking about if you want to enable a proactive messaging scenario around company communicator. For example, where you want to reach all employees inside your tenant or inside your team. We have a sample app that you can use to get up and running really quick. We've also got other samples around FAQ bots or HR bots if you were interested in those. Lastly, there are adaptive cards. Adaptive cards are a rich card type which enable they provide for their UI containers. So the poly card over here that I showed you, this thing is an adaptive card. So the welcome, the Contoso bot, or the poly card over here. These are adaptive cards. They really allow you to showcase your app's character and present a lot of detailed information to the user in a very concise and a compact format. So go check it out once you're further along in your development journey. And that's it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much. I hope this session was worthwhile for you. I really enjoyed presenting for you, and I hope that you continue your learning journey with the Microsoft Teams learning path. Please share your feedback for us. It's very important. It helps us understand, what type of learning resources that you're looking from these sessions and what we should maybe do for build next year. So whatever you think is, just share feedback. And lastly, just go return back, there's lots happening into the main event. So just go back, head into the main event and catch up on the other sessions. That's all I have for you. Thank you. Bye.